And so back in 1998, the American Farmland Trust released this report stating that the local areas in red, or the areas on that map in red, were considered a threatened landscape due to the sprawling effects of metropolitan Atlanta. So this wasn't sitting well with a number of landowners in the Chattahoochee Hill Country, such as Steve Nygren and many others. They all got together and realized they needed to change the traditional development pattern that has currently happened in metropolitan Atlanta to other rural communities. This would be a typical development pattern. You would go from literally pasture to regional mall overnight. And these landowners, they formed the Chattahoochee Hill Country Alliance. They realized that that was not the type of development pattern they wanted for their community. Also, interestingly enough, as I keep talking about Fulton County and that they're south, just north of Fulton County, this was the same zoned land use and zoning as the Hill Country. So they started to see, well, wow, they didn't do anything. They didn't think differently about how to plan for their land use and their green space, and they're starting to suburbanize rapidly, actually. You know, Atlanta is known as one of the rapidly sprawling, largest civilization ever in our history, and so they did not want to get caught up into that sprawling landscape. So they actually worked with their local Nature Conservancy chapter and the government. They actually secured a grant, and they hired a consultant firm that was led by our company, and they decided they needed to engage the community to help create an alternative land use and green space plan. They really wanted to protect their land values. They wanted to provide options for ways that folks could both develop and preserve their land, and they really wanted to protect their rural character. So we took a resource-based and community-based approach to doing just that. So the resource side was we really studied the land. We really looked at those 40,000 acres from an environmental standpoint, cultural. We started to layer the areas that could possibly be appropriate for development, looking at soils, tree cover, looking at where existing infrastructure was. And that was critical. That was important for us to all have a good understanding of the land. But the most critical part was really getting the community involved. And again, the Hill Country Alliance had done a great job of already going to what Steve termed community coffees and really getting everyone to rally around the negative consequences of unplanned growth. So we came in and just really helped keep that dialogue going and really started to ask the community, what is it that they wanted to have in their community? What were some of their fears? What were the best services that would be appropriate there? But the number one principle and the number one question we really asked is, where should we not develop? So through many conversations, it was determined, again, with the community fully behind us, that they wanted it to be a clustered pattern. They wanted it to be, we wanted to take the same amount of development that would be allowable by right. This is very important. We're not taking away their development opportunities, but allowable by right, and clustering that into key locations within the community, locations that made the most sense and protected the environmentally sensitive land and habitat. And so the concept that we worked with the community to develop, and the Hill Country Alliance, is one that is 3 villages with smaller hamlets throughout the 40,000 acres. And those villages are shown in these approximate locations, because that's where large parcels of land with willing landowners came together and were also identified as having best potential value for development and having a least negative effect environmentally on the land. And we also developed a series of buffers. And again, all of this is in an effort to provide that variety of options for how to preserve and develop land.